Hey everyone, welcome back to yet another video. Today we are going to recap week 17 of the NFL season. Before we get into this recap, I want to give a warning for next week's recap that I'm going to be a little bit on the busier side. So it may not come out on Tuesday like normal, but probably the Wednesday. I want to give that warning out there for next week's recap, but let's go ahead and get into this recap. First up, we have the Dallas Cowboys win against the Washington Commanders, 30-23. And honestly, I just did not think Josh Johnson would do as well as he did. I did expect the Cowboys to do pretty well. Offensively, 307 yards, 2 touchdowns to Dak. And Malik Davis having a 103-yard day. I have not really seen him that much this year. But, yeah, more so my thought process was that Washington was not going to do as well with Josh Johnson. And he did end up having 198 yards off 23 attempts, which that is pretty good. And can I just say, Jacoby Kwasi-Merritt and getting 105 yards off and 2 touchdowns off 11 carries. Yeah, that likely is the main reason why the Commanders did pretty well offensively. But yeah, overall, this whole Christmas slate is more on the boring side. There was an interesting upset though to get into, but overall, we expected this slate to be boring. Like, this is not really too much of a exciting game to watch anyways, but yeah, we had in this game. Next up, this is not an interesting upset. We had the Vikings win against the Lions 23-10. And what makes this part interesting is more so the rushing game, because this rush game really did do everything to the Vikings offense. Max Blasma, 3 net passing yards because he had 48 lost yards from sacks. Okay. The rushing offense really was the offense. But yeah, I don't know, man. I kind of expected it with Max Bosma, but like that's just pathetic. Only 3 passing yards, and he still won though. Like, that's and okay. Even with the rushing offense, you only had one big play in. Like, how did you get to 23? There has to be like a defensive touchdown. No, wait, hold on. There's 2 touchdowns here. This not. Okay. What I can see though, okay, that's the reason why. I completely forgot about this point. 6 turnovers from the Lions. Yeah, that will do it. That will absolutely do it. 6 turnovers. What? Jared Goff lost 3 of them. Oh my goodness. What was Goff doing? 5 turnovers from Goff alone. And the rush game did not go either. Yeah, the Vikings defense is legit. The offense could not do anything, but their defense can absolutely do everything. And for the Lions, yeah, I don't know, man. They just are not. They have not been that great recently. Hold on. If I even just look at their schedule, 3 losses in a row. You could even just say 2-5 in the last 7 games. Like, they've not had even just 2 wins in a row ever since the Bengals game. And now they're officially eliminated from the playoffs as well. So, how's that for you? And they're actually last in the division because the Vikings swept the Lions. So, if the Lions lose to the Bears on Sunday, they're going to have a fourth place schedule next year. So, yeah, they're officially going to be last in the division. It's so funny how, like, if the Lions and the Vikings both lose, or even just the Lions lose in general, the division standings for the NFC North just swapped from last year. Because this game last year would have been 14-2 versus 14-2. Or something like that. Now, they're both 8-8. So, yeah, there's something to go along with that. And, yeah, I honestly don't know what else to say. Chernobyl just cost the Lions. Next up, we have the Broncos win against the Chiefs 20-13 in a game where it was honestly just expected. Like, Bo Nix, he didn't play all too great. And the Washington game didn't really do all too much either. Honestly, I was expecting this to be in the bowling side as well, considering, well, the Broncos can't win anything more than a touchdown, and the Chiefs is like third swing in quarterback of Chris Oladokun. I still don't know how to pronounce his name. But he got 66 yards. This is really how the Christmas slate was, wasn't it? This really was. Okay. Yeah. So, the best game of the Christmas slate was Washington Cowboys. That really was the best game of the Christmas slate. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, the Broncos is a fraudulent team, honestly. I'm going to say it. They're just not going to make the Super Bowl. If they do, they're going to, like, bounce, kind of like how the Chiefs did last year. It really is coming like that to the Broncos at this point, because the defense can save them, but the offense cannot do anything to do. The Broncos offense just cannot do anything outside of, like, just barely winning. And against those tougher teams, like the Jaguars the week before, you're not really going to do all too well. So, I highly doubt the Broncos will even make the Super Bowl. But at least they have a 13-3 record. Next up, we have the Houston Texans winning 20-16 against the Los Angeles Chargers. The Texans, they did all right. Honestly, this game was more of a defensive battle, considering 3 total interceptions and, yeah, just 3 total interceptions. I was seeing if there was any fumbles, but Stroud ended up playing all right, outside those 2 interceptions that he threw, with 244 yards and 2 touchdowns to go along with those 2 interceptions. But the rushing game, he really has. The rushing game has really not been Houston's strong suit at all. And I think that is absolutely hurting the Texans. Especially when Joe Mixon was able to do stuff last year. But he has not played at all. So, I highly doubt that the rushing game is going to be resolved this year at this point. Considering we're already, like, week 17, it's not going to. The Chargers, 276 yards out of 32 attempts for Herbert, with 1 touchdown and 1 pick. And the rushing game really did not do all too much for the Chargers either. It ended up just being, like, who was able to play better defense, which, and also better kicking, because Dicker missed a few kicks. But yeah, the Texans ended up winning a close one as the Texans officially made the playoffs. The Chargers officially lost the division to the Broncos. The Broncos officially won the AFC West. And yeah. Next up, we have the Baltimore Ravens win against the Green Bay Packers 41-24. Before we say anything, this loss officially put the Bears as the winners of the NFC North, and it also kept Baltimore's playoff hopes alive, as now they have a Sunday night matchup with the Steelers for the division and for the 4th seed. I don't get why another game's not the Sunday night football, but we'll get to that in a bit. Or maybe even the picks video. But for this game, Huntley did not play all too well. 107 yards, only a touchdown. But what really was the motor of this offense, Derrick Henry, man. 216 yards and 4 touchdowns. Yeah, Derrick Henry had 36 carries, which was basically half of the entire... That was basically half of the entire snap count for the Ravens. 20 plus 53 plus 1, 74. 36 to 74. Yeah, that will do it. And then for the Packers, Willis did not play all too bad himself. 288 yards off 21 attempts and a touchdown. Clayton Tune did play a little bit, but he was largely ineffective, even throwing a pick, which, yikes. But the rushing game, Wilson was able to get most of the yardage. This Josh Jacobs barely did anything. But yeah, I'm going to say it. Derrick Henry just bulldozed his way through the Packers. And if he can against the Steelers, then the Ravens can make the playoffs. And even after like a 1-5 start, which will be fairly good on the Ravens. And the Steelers is inconsistent, so maybe they can. But yeah, we're going to have to see what happens week 18 for the Ravens. And honestly, the Packers are locked into the 7th seed, so if they play their starters, okay. If they sit them out for potentially facing the Bears, who might be the 2 seed, that might happen. So the Packers for week 18 may end up not really doing too much. But for the Ravens, they do have that important battle with the Steelers. And we will see what comes out with that. Next up, we have the Cincinnati Bengals winning 37-14 against the Arizona Cardinals. And this is just a typical Bengals game at this point, late season game. Even though they missed the playoffs. Joe Burrow got 305 yards and 2 touchdowns off 31 attempts. And yeah, the Bengals passing offense is one of the best offenses. Bengals is one of the best offenses, but Burrow's been out for most of the year to where they couldn't really do all too much, and why they have a losing record right now. I would assume that if the Bengals actually had Joe Burrow for most of the year, that we'd be seeing the stories of the Bengals for this season would have been a lot different, that they would have been like a playoff team. Granted, they are facing some of the easiest opponents right now. But yeah, for the Cardinals, they just continue to suck. I don't have too much hopes for next week either for the Cardinals, considering it's a divisional game for them. And all of the Rams are probably the weakest one of those 3 at this point. Or at least what seemed like it from this week. But maybe the Seahawks. Whatever. All we know is that the Cardinals is pretty bad, and they'll probably just end up losing anyways next week. Next up, we have the inconsistent Steelers losing to the Cleveland Browns 13-6. Yeah. If you were trying to say about the Steelers, let's just say this. They are super inconsistent because Aaron Rodgers only had 168 yards off 39 attempts against this Browns defense after doing enough to beat the Lions the week before. Well, to be fair, that was the rush game. And the rushing game did do pretty good this week as well. Jaylen Warren getting 64 yards off 12 carries. And then, honestly, the rushing game just did pretty well in general because Connor Hayward and Kenneth Gainwell. Gainwell did not do all too much, but Hayward was able to get 26 yards off 2 carries. And the defense also allowed Shedeur Sanders to actually play rather well outside of those 2 picks, as he had 186 yards and a touchdown off 23 attempts. Granted, there was the 2 picks in there as well. Yeah, this game was just... Yeah, it was a pretty bad game, considering this is just a defensive slugfest that, honestly, I feel like the Steelers just... If they don't get better next week, they will lose the division. And if they lose the division and go 9-8, I bet you the whole internet is going to meme the Steelers. Because they would have reached that 9-8 record and just gave up. But, yeah. This game definitely seemed like, oh, we got to 9 wins, and now we're going to give up for the rest of the season. That kind of seemed like what happened with this game, honestly. Because, like, Aaron Rodgers is only getting 168 yards off those 39 attempts. That's kind of proving to me that's the case with the getting to 9 wins and then giving up. I kind of want to see the Steelers, like, actually do better, because if they don't, the internet is going to meme them. But, yeah. This is just an ugly game. Next up, we had a game between 2 up-and-coming teams. Between the New Orleans Saints and the Tennessee Titans, with the Saints winning 34-26. Yeah, when I say 2 up-and-coming teams, I'm not lying. Both of these teams has been winning. Before this game, they won 5 of their last 6 between the 2 combined, with the Titans losing to the 49ers is that 1 loss. So, hey, you know what? They're both up-and-coming. Tyler Shough, though, 333 yards and 2 touchdowns off 27 attempts. That is absolutely insane. And Cam Ward, okay, he didn't do as well, but 251 yards and 2 touchdowns off 40 attempts. Obviously did not do as well, but they both played rather well. And I did say in going into this week on that picks video that I trust the Saints defense more. And that really did happen. Tony Pollard still got to 85 yards off 18 carries for the Titans rushing game. But Audric Estime got to 94 yards and a touchdown on 14 carries. So, the Saints' offense generally was better. I will admit, I thought the Titans' offense was going to be a little bit better than the Saints, but the Saints' defense would carry it. Apparently, the Saints' offense performed that much better in this game. And also considering that the Saints only ran 50 plays and the Titans ran 68, the Saints was just more productive on offense as well. So, yeah, these two teams are all up and coming, but the Saints, they could end up only going 7-10 after being a 2-win team in just a month ago. So, good job, Saints. And for the Titans, I'm not sure if you'll win against the Jaguars next week, but both these teams, I think, will continue to be that up-and-coming next week. Next up, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars winning 23-17 against the Indianapolis Colts. And for the Jaguars, it was a little bit of a kind of game. Because they did not play all too well in this game. The Colts was winning for a majority of it. As going into halftime, the Colts was winning by a field goal. And is the Jaguars good enough to win like every single week to get to the Super Bowl? I'm not entirely sure. Because if they have this kind of game against the Colts, now I said they were the Super Bowl in my AFC pick for the Super Bowl last week, but this game kind of showed me a little bit different. Now, do I think they still have a chance to get to there? Yes. Are they as much as a favorite in my mind? No. And it also does help that one particular team that we'll get to in a moment can absolutely just balled out. To where it's between this team and that team for my Super Bowl pick right now in the AFC. Because I still think this team can get there. They just need to clean up a little bit. For the Jaguars. But going into this game, Lawrence did have 263 yards in a pick. And the rushing game, highlighted by ETN, 76 yards. But Lawrence had 26 and 2 touchdowns himself. For the Colts, yeah, they're eliminated from playoff contention now. And Rivers did not play all too well against Jaguars defense, only having 147 yards and a touchdown and a pick. So, at least the defense was still playing that caliber for the Jaguars, but the offense needed to pick it up a little bit in my mind, especially against those better teams. But overall, I still think the Jaguars do have what it takes. They just need to clean up a little bit. I know I ran into that random little bit on the long side there, but yeah, I think this was a little bit too close to call for the Jaguars, and I think they should try to clean it up this upcoming week. Next up, I called this upset. I called it. We have the Miami Dolphins winning 20-17 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Buccaneers. Mayfield did throw 346 yards, 2 picks, but also threw... Hold on. 346 yards, 2 touchdowns, but he also did throw 2 picks. That's what I was reading. But the rushing game just could not get going. Bucky Irving only had 19 yards off 9 carries. Yeah, when your best running back's only going to do that, it's no wonder they're going to lose. For the Dolphins, Quinn Ewers didn't play all too bad. 172 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's the Buccaneers defense for you. And Devon Achane got 83 yards off 18 carries. So the Dolphins was able to do well on offense, well enough to beat the Buccaneers, as well as skip picks off Baker and even get a fumble in order to keep them from scoring themselves. Now, I want to say this clearly. For the Buccaneers, I think this is a troublesome game because more so than any other game. Because the Dolphins were starting Quinn Ewers in his second ever start. And you've been on a losing skin, only winning against the Cardinals since your bye of like week 8 or week 9. I want to say week 9. That is not good. And now you're facing the Panthers for the division if the Falcons don't win already. If the Falcons don't win later on anyways. You are in a very bad spot. Because you need to beat the Panthers, but you also need the Saints to beat the Falcons in order for you to even make the playoffs. And if you're wondering why I'm saying about the Saints and Falcons, because that game actually, because the Falcons won against the Rams this week, that game actually has significance to this potential playoff spot. Like, hold on. I am now on playoffparticulars.com just to show you guys. And, okay. So, obviously we know whoever wins this game will be ahead of the division after Saturday. However, let's say the Bucs win, right? Let me go over here. Just highlight this part, right? Let's just highlight this part. The Buccaneers will be ahead of the Panthers after Saturday. I don't know why, but they just haven't updated the times on this website yet. But watch carefully when I pick the Falcons. The Panthers still win the division. And it's because the Panthers, because the Falcons go to 8-9, tying the Panthers and the Bucs. And they all just have the head-to-head record. The Panthers would have a 3-1 record against the Bucs and the Falcons because the Panthers swept the Falcons. So, yeah. The Buccaneers is in a very bad spot now following this game. And it could have been avoided. It really could have. But you fell into this trap. And yeah, I don't think you're going to make the playoff. Next up, we have the New England Patriots win 42-10 against the New York Jets. Yeah, when I said earlier about the Jaguars being like this team or the other team, this team's that team that I think could have a chance to make the Super Bowl. Drake May had 19 of 21 completion in percentage. If you even just put 19 out of 21 into a calculator, hold on. 19 divided by 21. 0.9047. Yeah, that's the completion percentage she had. With 256 yards and 5 touchdowns. Yeah, that is absolutely amazing. And he actually left the game early just due to the Patriots just already being up by so much. They were up 42-3 when he was taken out for the rest of the game. It's like, all right, we'll rest him for the rest of the game. Okay. Yeah, that's the type of performance that you want to see out of your quarterback, especially against a bad team like the Jets. And I think the Patriots have what it takes. I think they might become my full-on Super Bowl favorite of the AFC if the Jaguars don't do his thing. If the Patriots perform better than the Jaguars this upcoming week, I'm going to have the Patriots as my Super Bowl favorite of the AFC. And I think that might happen. And yeah, just outside of Drake May stuff, Trevion Henderson got to 82 yards off 19 carries for the Patriots. And Ramondre Stevenson had 47 yards and a touchdown. On the passing side of things for the Jets, yeah, 152 yards off 33 attempts. That's not good. The Jets have not really been all too great this past throughout the whole year. And they're also one game away from not ever getting an interception. That is sad. And Aaron Glenn is a defensive coach. So, yeah. I'm not expecting Aaron Glenn to be like, I don't expect him to be fired this upcoming game, but after this upcoming game, but I don't think he's going to be here for long, especially if this all continues next year. But at least the Washington game was able to get going for the Jets, with Breece Hall getting 111 yards and a touchdown. But you really cannot say all too much outside of that. And yeah, the Patriots just absolutely shut up. Just not shut out, but just absolutely demolished the Jets. Next up, we have the Seattle Seahawks winning 27-10 against the Carolina Panthers. The Seahawks. Can I just say that this game was pretty sloppy? A 3-3 halftime score. Yeah, this is the type of sloppy game that I was thinking that would happen when I made the pick in the picks video. Because, yeah, Sam Darnold only had 147 yards off 27 attempts, 1 touchdown and a pick. In the rushing game, Charbonnet was actually able to do well, 110 yards off 18 carries. And, yeah, a lot of their production did come in the second half. But Bryce Young and the Panthers, Young only had 54 yards off 24 attempts and a pick. And Rico Dowdle only had 59 yards off 12 carries. So, the rushing game was the most effective part within either offense. But, yeah, this was a really sloppy game. I do think both teams will perform better next week. But overall, this was just a sloppy game. And Seattle has the 49ers next week for the 1 seed, which that's the game I was talking about. That should be the one that should have been the Sunday night game. But yeah, I just think that both teams will perform better. And for the Panthers, I think they would win considering their opponent, the Bucks. Seahawks, I'm not entirely sure yet, since the 49ers is one of the hotter teams as well right now. So, at least I would think that they both would perform better for next week. Next up, we have the New York Giants winning 34-10 against the Las Vegas Raiders. The Giants, yeah, they absolutely played well against the Raiders, considering the rushing game was able to get 155 yards overall. Tyrone Tracy had 14 carries for 62 yards of that. And Jackson Dart and Devin Singletary having combined 93 yards off 17 carries and 3 touchdowns between those two combined. And I gotta say it, the Raiders are absolutely going for the number 1 overall pick. Because Geno had 176 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks. Yeah, that tells me that they're trying to go for the 1 pick, for the number 1 pick. And the rushing game was not able to get too much either. So, I do think that this game is just telling that the Raiders wanted more. And the Giants still have a shot. They do. They just need the Raiders to win against the Chiefs in Week 18. But how is that going to happen? Maybe not. The Raiders is pretty bad. But yeah, I just think that the Raiders is going to get the 1 pick. Next up, we have the Eagles barely winning against the Buffalo Bills 13-12. The Eagles, they honestly did not really play all too great on offense. 110 yards and only a touchdown for Jalen Hurts off 27 attempts. And Saquon got 68 yards off 19 carries. And hold on. Even if I go to the play-by-play for the second half, 5 plays. They did not have a single drive outside of this one go more than 3 plays. Like, they just kept going 3 and out. Yeah, and they still won. Other than that, the Bills had a questionable last play in my mind with that 2-point conversion. They had the momentum rather than the Eagles. I don't know why they tried to go for the win there instead of just going for the overtime and getting it through there, because they absolutely had the momentum. So, what's up? But overall, it really was just not that good of a game. I didn't even go into the players within the Bills yet. 262 yards for Josh Allen, and then 74 yards for James Cook, with Allen getting 2 rushing touchdowns. But yeah, I don't know why the Bills just absolutely sold that game. Honestly, the Bills just sold that game going for the 2-point conversion there. But yeah, I really cannot say all too much. The Bills had the momentum. They just sold. And then, you know what? Okay, 49ers beat 49ers beat the Bears 42-38. But you know what? I can't be too mad about this result, actually. I expected the 49ers to be the better team, but us keeping it very close and even having a shot to win it at the end there speaks pretty much to how good the Bears can be. And Caleb Williams had 330 yards and 7.9 in average from the 42 attempts, and he also had 2 touchdowns. And our rushing game actually played pretty well as well. 54 yards off 9 carries for Swift and 38 off 8 carries for Monangai. But we also just could not stop the 49ers. Yes, Purdy got to 303 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick that ended up being a pick 6 at the very start of the game against Purdy. And CMC, we really could not stop. 140 yards off 23 carries and a touchdown for CMC as well. But this really was a good game. I was really hoping the Bears would pull off that final play, but Caleb was a bit short trying to go on the one. But yeah, it really was a good game. And I think this is the first time I heard it in the commentary, but I think there was 7-7. This was the first time it was tied 7-7, 14-14, 21-21, 28-28, and 35-35. I think this was the first time it ever was tied that much. So, hey, you know what? That was a really good game. And yeah, 49ers got ahead, but this also is pretty good for the Bears. And finally, we had this upset of the Atlanta Falcons beating the Rams 27-24. What happened with the Rams? Because, Stafford, 269 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. 3. Yeah, he's been like the MVP candidate. But now, going into this game, he has 8 interceptions overall, and 3 of them came last night. So I don't know exactly what happened there. But Kyren Williams absolutely tried his best is to get the offense back on track with 92 yards off 13 carries, but it just was not enough. But the main factor for the Falcons, Bijan Robinson getting to 195 yards off 22 carries and a touchdown. Yeah, Bijan was the offense in this game for the Falcons. And as Kirk Cousins could not really do all too much, 126 yards off 20 attempts. Yeah, I think this bodes just to the point of the Rams not having that great of a rush defense. Because the last time the Rams lost to anyone not named the Seahawks, it was to the Panthers with what seemed to be a good rushing game for the Panthers that game, which, yeah, I think that bodes to say that any good rushing offense could beat the Rams. And I think that's how you beat the Rams. So, against the 49ers, I think the 49ers would win. Against the Bears, I think the Bears might actually win because we have DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai. Against the Seahawks, that one's a little bit more tricky side because they don't have as good of a rushing offense, but they could still beat the Rams. Yeah, I'm not sure the Rams will be Super Bowl contenders this year based on that rush defense. But overall, I think the Rams could have a good offense still. They just need to clean up the passing game as well. And the rush defense. At least in terms of what happened this game. But yeah, now the Falcons could just do the funniest thing to the Bucs. Because if the Bucs win, they essentially choose who goes to the playoffs between the Bucs and the Panthers. So yeah, that'll be a fun thing to see if the Bucs ends up winning. But yeah, for the Rams, they do have the Cardinals next week, and they should win. The Falcons, they have that matchup against the Saints where they could end up choosing if the Bucs win. And with that, that's going to be the end of this video. If you guys liked it, please make sure you hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!